have a chance. We put it all together.
I'm so glad you took the time to do this.
Oh man, thank you. Likewise.
Well, before I get started, Happy New Year, man.
Yeah, on to you. Thank you.
The last time we spoke, and I know you do a lot of presso, but the last time we spoke, you and I did, I was still doing print interviews. I wasn't doing this fancy schmancy stuff that the kids are doing now.
Like tech. Yeah, you didn't.
But it was in 2014, and you guys were in Atlanta on the All Hell Breaks Loose tour. Yeah, Black Star Riders. And boy, a lot has happened since then, which, by the way, that was one of my top shows, probably of the decade.
Oh, thank you.
It's still one of my favorites. I'm kind of upset with you for not coming back again, but I forgive you.
Yeah, we are too, we are too.
A lot has happened since then too. I mean, we've had a pandemic. We've had crazy shit in the world at like an astonishing level. The fires, but we have music. And one of the things I was curious to ask you about was, in times like this, a songwriter, because I'm a songwriter as well, these times can be very inspirational, but at the same time, you don't want it to be the overrunning narrative of your songs. So how hard is it for you in a situation like this to not be literal about the situation that's going on and to try to create that escapism? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. It's a great question. I only really write about what I know and what I experience. Or what somebody's relayed to me, a story a friend's told me or an experience they've had, and I can tap into that. And that's really the way that I've always done it. I mean, if I feel strongly about something, I communicate much better in my songs than I do in a conversation. You want to know what my politics are, what my religion is, what I think about love, hate. It's all there in the songs.
Right.
I'm not great at talking about it, but I'm pretty good at writing about it. I just find it easier to get it all out, to write it down. Always have. So it's very cathartic for me to do that. Anyway, it's like keeping a diary and then just putting music to that diary. But I know what you mean. I can get very dark and I can write some, as we all can, but I'm very aware of I don't want to bum everybody out. Everybody knows that the world's really fucked up. They might want to just come to a gig and forget about that for an hour and 30 minutes and just have a fantastic time. So I'm very aware of it's entertainment is what we do as well. And I'm very aware of the people who come to see me and everything that I'm involved in and what they expect and what they want from the show. Yeah, they want some heavy riffs and they want some heavy licks, but they want some fists in the air, feel good anthems as well. So I try and balance it out, I'll never shy away from writing about something, but people miss the point, and it's weird. I wrote a song. An example I'll give you is a song on the fourth Black Star Riders albums, which is called "Why Do You Love Your Guns More Than Your Kids?"
Oh, I love that song. Yes,
thank you. And growing up in Northern Ireland with the backdrop that we had, with the violence we had, with the Troubles all through my childhood, and seeing what that does to people and tears families apart. Then we obviously have Sandy Hook and the whole thing going on here. I have kids. They've already had a couple of lockdowns at the schools they've been at, false alarms, thank God. I'm just saying this has to end. I wasn't saying we got to take everybody's right to have a gun away. I'm just saying we got to do better. We got to do better. The hate mail I got for that song was incredible. And it really disheartened me for us as a species, because it's a song about reconciliation. Not one point in that song did I say, you need to give up your arms, you need to blah, 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 blah. It was not an anti-gun song. It was an anti-violence song and about how we need to do better as a society to protect the people that we love, and especially the kids. And it just blew my mind. And it rattled me. People saying, I'm never coming to your show again, and I didn't think you were like this. What did you think I was like? Am I about arming myself to the teeth and going out and shooting innocent people? Is that is that the other side of this? And it really, in my eyes, I was, and I kind of went, I could have gone to it, and I went, I'm really fed up of being misunderstood. And I think the next couple of songs I wrote were very, not I'm going to say happy, but they were very just personal songs dealing with emotions. I didn't get too political because I was so annoyed, because I think if I'd written it, what I really want to say, I would have pissed a lot of people off. I think you have to, I think, I'm making this a really long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
No, I'm loving this. I love this.
I think that, you've got to be aware of who you're writing for. I mean, a lot of artists go, I write for myself. I don't give a fuck what people think. I don't care what people think. That doesn't make any sense. You should be writing for the people that like you and like your music. That should be the first people you're writing for. And I've never bought into that self-indulgent, well, it's all about me, so I'm just going to write what I want, and if people don't like it, I don't care. Guess what? I care. I care somebody doesn't like my record. I want to know why they don't like it, because I've worked really, really hard to try and make them like it. So that's really the headspace that I get into. I'm very concerned about what people think, because I want them to get something out of it.
Well, because it's this weird balance of, like, some people would call it narcissism, and some people would call it artistic, this need for artistic credibility, or not really credibility. What is it? Like, I can't think of the word right now, but basically it's like, as artists, we all want people to like what we're doing in one way or another. But subjectively, when it comes to songs, like what you were just talking about, it gets complex, because someone like you, who is a very outspoken songwriter, like if somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh man, Ricky was singing about taking the guns away," I would, well, first off, I'd be like, that doesn't surprise me. Have you listened to any of the other guys' fucking songs? Like, do you? Yeah,
I mean, well, that was it. I was kind of going, a lot of these people, I'm kind of going, what have you been listening to? You're now questioning my politics and my stance. I've put out over 20 records. I'm sorry, but the clue's been there all along. Why is this suddenly a surprise to you now? If you disagree with us, I don't get it. I don't know what you've been listening to, but it certainly wasn't me. And I'm not trying to polarize people, and I don't want to bring people down. But I like the artists that I admire are the great lyricists and the great storytellers that tell it the way it is. And I believe in human rights, and I believe in love, and I believe that we have to treat each other respectfully, and that's the way I've been brought up, and that's what I adhere to. So that's the way I write.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing at the same time, but, like, just to give you kind of a parallel, was that probably about 12 years ago or so, my wife and I went to see Crosby, Stills and Nash, because I'm a huge David Crosby fan.
Sure.
And they got up there, and Graham Nash was giving some sort of like a dialogue about, at the time, the whistleblower, Edward Snowden or whatever. And a bunch of these people in front started booing and yelling. And Graham Nash goes, "Why are you surprised? We've been around for like 100 years. Like, you would think at this point, y'all would know where we stand on stuff like this."
I know.
And then he goes, "And anyway, we've got your money already. So if you don't like it, go ahead and just fucking leave,
Right. Good for him.
The push and pull of something like this too is what I've noticed, especially in talking to other fans of songwriters or music in general, is that there's this line that can be very stressful. Like, some of it can be considered like, oh, you're being complacent and not addressing it enough. Whereas some other people are saying, keep your politics and your beliefs out of it. It's music, So, like, there's this place that people feel like, for some reason, they need to compromise. But what I love about you, and always have, is that there is no compromise, because, again, you're writing to the people that are fans and that like your music. But at this point in time, I'm sure you probably fucking think at this point, okay, they know me. Like, why would anything I say be a surprise to them?
I don't feel like I don't want to preach, and I don't want to kind of come off like I'm preaching either. I'm kind of going, here's what I think. this is what's going on in my world, and here's my opinion of it. What do you think? And, you know, if you disagree with it, that's cool, you know, but I think, like you said, and the example you said with Crosby, Stills and Nash was like, come on, man, you know, interpret the meaning of the song. I mean, and again, people go, well, you know, I want lyrics to mean to me what they want to mean to me, and not necessarily what you wrote the song about. That's fine as well, but don't get it so wrong that it's just completely wrong. It's pretty obvious what, you know, certain people are writing about, you know. Mm-hmm. So for you to take it the complete opposite is like, well, hang on a minute, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I said. You can see that. But then some people just don't want to listen to lyrics. They just want to listen to the riff. They want to listen to the chorus. Totally fine with that. It's subjective, and that's just the way music is, you know. And we'll just go around in circles here trying to analyze it. I just write, you know, somebody will say something to me and it'll set me off, or something will have happened in my family, or, you know, somebody will have told me something, or I'll see something on TV, or, you know, and anything can trigger it. And it's an opinion.
It totally is. And then at some point also, you know, like you were just saying, is that something's going to trigger you. You're going to want to write it. You're going to get it out, because this is how you converse with people. You can't sit down in a room with 1,000 people and say, let's talk. So your conversation is between your music and the audience.
Exactly.
So the new album, man, I have to say that this album seems to be almost a retrospective of your influences, but with new songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I would agree with that. I think that's a great analogy.
So why, at this point, did it seem like that this album seems to have more of your varied influences pulled into one thing? So why was now the time?
I think there's a lot of contributing factors. I think with Black Star Riders being on a hiatus, everything I was writing I could keep for me and not have to go, well, that's a really good riff, I better play that to, you know, the guys in Black Star Riders, and you know, so I think there was not everything. I knew I didn't have to hold anything back. That was great. You know, Keith Nelson and I have developed such a great relationship now over the years, because I didn't really know Keith that well when Life Was Hard and Fast. We'd really just met, but you know, we've been buddies now for, you know, going on, you know, 8 years. So going into this writing session with him and this record with him, we were very comfortable with each other. And we started writing it pretty much about 21, 22. And we had a lot of stuff and we were going in one direction. And I just came in with this. I said, Keith, I don't want any acoustic stuff on this record. I said, not that I love the acoustic stuff, but I just want this to be a real in-your-face rock and roll album. And he was like, I'm in. Let's go. And that's when the fun began. And I just sort of hit one of those veins where I was sort of going home, and what way it usually works for me and Keith is I would finish a song to a point where there'd be a verse and a chorus. Maybe didn't have a bridge. Or sometimes I'd finish a song. It would be arrangement. So I take it to Keith. He'd go, no, you need to start with this. You need to put that there. You need to do that. Keith's great at that. And that's where his input would really come into the songs. And then we just start demoing them, and they were sounding really good, and it was a really good vibe. And I just said, I want this to be a loud, in-your-face rock and roll album with just great hooks and great songs. And that was the mandate that we sort of set out to achieve. And I think we got there.
So another thing that really struck me on this album was the guest slots. You know, obviously, you know, we had Billy Duffy from The Cult, which I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like,
yeah, me too. You know, I still feel like
yeah, I mean, so you had Billy Duffy, then you had Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke, and then Lita Ford. And let me tell you, I had a whole wall dedicated to Lita Ford when I was 15. Like
a lot of us did, right?
Every boy did.
Not every boy. I mean, every girl as well. My wife was a massive Lita Ford fan. You know, even you know, trying to look like her with the hair and the whole, you know, absolutely. So. Yeah.
Being a Lita Ford fan for so long, I'm like, on paper, this shouldn't work. I'm like, because I'm trying to picture it, Lita Ford and Ricky Warwick. I'm like, how is this going to work? You know, and it was gangbusters, man. It was like, I couldn't think of another voice that would have been as perfect with this song.
Well, that was one of the first songs we wrote, and so we were sitting on that for a while, and I sort of said to Keith, I'm listening to this, I'm hearing it as a duet. And there's a great singer here in LA called Siobhan Kelly. She does some sessions, and I said, I'm going to get Siobhan in just to put a vocal on this so I can hear how it sounds with a female voice, on there with mine. So Siobhan came in and did a great vocal on the demo, and it sounded great. I said, we got to do this. This has to be a duet. And with no disrespect to Siobhan, I wanted a name.
Right.
So I wanted a Joan Jett. I wanted Chrissy Hind, and I thought, well, I want to leave. I love the Runaways. I just love them. So I thought, Lita Ford would even be great. Lita would be great on this, because it harks more back to the Runaways era than Lita's solo stuff. That's what I had in my mind. It was that era I was thinking of when it was the raw punk rock of the Runaways. And then a really weird thing happened. I didn't know Lita. I'd never met her. And my manager, I was talking to my manager one day, went, oh yeah, I just picked up Lita Ford for management. And I was like, that's interesting. Because I have this song, and I sent him the song, and I said, please send this to Lita and let me know, what she thinks. And she came straight back and she goes, I love it. I'm in 100%. And it was one of those really strange pinch yourself days when she came into the studio, because I wasn't there. So Keith was in the studio in LA, and my manager Adam brought Lita down to the studio, and I was on tour with Stiff Little Fingers in the States, and I think I was in Portland or somewhere like that. And so I was sitting on the Stiff Little Fingers tour bus, again on tour with a band that are huge inspiration and heroes of mine, on FaceTime with Lita Ford in the studio in LA, putting these badass vocals on this track of mine. And it's just one of those days where I went, this is so insanely brilliant, and she came in the studio and she nailed it, and we finished the track and it sounded great, and straight away it was always, it had to be the first track we put out from the record. And then I just said, look, I'm going to do a video for this, and she's like, I'm in. I want to be in the video. So we went to Phoenix, because she lives out in Phoenix direction. Yeah. And we shot the video in an old boxing gym, 120 degrees heat, no air conditioning, and she was just a trooper. She was so professional. And I said to her, do you still have that Hamer guitar that you had in the Runaways? She said, oh yeah. She goes, do you want me to bring it? I was like, fuck yeah. So she played guitar, and it was just, I can't say enough good things about her. She totally got it. She totally got the vibe I was going for. She got the emotion, the feel, everything about it. She got it. I didn't have to explain one thing to her. She goes, she just nailed it. And what an honor.
It was just so fascinating for me to hear it, because, Don't Leave Me in the Dark was this song that, like I said, in my mind, I was like, I got to hear this and see how this is going to work. And I was so happy with it. But the other thing I have to say that I loved about the guests that you had on this album is that none of them seems to come in with like an ego print. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, oh my God, okay, can you please make it so I don't know this is Billy Duffy or whatever, but I love that.
What's so amazing about Billy is that Billy is Billy no matter what. Billy turns up at the studio on his Triumph motorbike looking like Billy Duffy from The Cult. Doesn't bring an amp, doesn't want me to send him the songs beforehand. He comes in, we hand him one of the Pauls in the studio, Les Pauls in the studio. He goes, I'll plug into that amp. I play it through, the song once through to him, and he starts playing, and it sounds like Billy Duffy. You know what I mean? It's not his guitar, it's not his amp, it's not his setup, but it sounds like Billy Duffy. And I just went, this is just, it's genius. It's brilliant. And Billy's, The Cult were, again, hugely inspirational, certainly around when the Almighty started.
Yeah.
And Billy's been a good mate of mine since the early 90s. And, it was amazing that he came in and played. And he ended up playing on a couple of tracks. And, we did like 4 takes of each track, and there was gold in every one of those takes. Mm-hmm. And it's a question of me and Keith going through and putting together the best one. But like I said, you could have just used any of those takes, would have been perfect. It was that good. And Charlie Starr, I've never met Charlie. Charlie's Keith's buddy. Keith's worked a lot with Blackberry Smoke. So Keith knew Charlie, and I was aware of Charlie, and Charlie was aware of me, which was lovely. And Keith's like, I think this track Rise and Grind, we should have Charlie on it. And I said, well, if you can make that happen, that would be amazing. So that was one of the remote things where we sent the track to Charlie, and he sent his amazing guitar parts back, and that was it. So still to meet Charlie, which I look forward to doing so, because I've heard so many good things about the man. Yeah, it's just wonderful to have these people agree to come and play on your record.
It's so rare to me sometimes to see, to hear, like I don't know that if I would have known that if I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't have thought that there was really guests other than Lita's voice, you know? And so there's this thing about being able to come in and put your mark on something, but to be respectful to.
Which everybody was. There was no, I am who I am, and it's going to sound like this. It was like, let me hear the track. Let me come up with a part that fits the track. And everybody did that, which was, unbelievable.
On this album, to kind of go back to what I was talking about earlier about some of the elements that I was really hearing, like to kind of go back with this retrospective concept. I mean, I heard, of course, there was the elements of, Black Star Riders, the Phil Lynott influence, the Almighty. But then for some reason, I got this glimpse, like this, I was like, wait, I hear some Hanoi Rocks in there. And I listened hard, and I was like, I wonder if that's in some of the other songs. And I went through like some of your previous stuff, and I heard little bits of it, but I seemed to hear a good bit more of it this time around. So I don't know, am I digging too deep here?
No, I mean, Hanoi were definitely a band that I loved and still love. Michael's a good friend. We just did, 2023, start 23, we toured the UK, and Michael, with Black Star Riders, and Michael Monroe opened for us, and that was a huge honor to have him on the show. Again, Mike. Again, I go back with Michael quite a few years, and we're good mates, and he's a force of nature. He's a fantastic human being. So there's like you said, they would have been an influence on me, absolutely. As where a lot of those bands, like there's a lot of the 12-string Rickenbackers from the Byrds and Tom Petty's, that vibe. And Keith's the same. Keith and I tend to have been influenced by the same bands quite a lot. I mean, there's even, a song like "Don't Sell Your Soul to Fall in Love," I'll hold my hands up. That's Steelers Wheel. Jerry Rafferty, I'm a massive Jerry Rafferty fan, and always have been. I thought, let me get a little bit of Night Owl in there, and in the verses of that, it's a complete, tip of the hat to Jerry. So you've got everything from that, right the way through to the full-on punk rock spectrum as well.
I feel like sometimes, especially as you're playing longer, the more years you play, the more years you write songs, is that some of these things come out blindly. Like I've talked to some songwriters where I was like, oh, I heard a little hint of this, and they would say like, oh, well, I didn't, that's cool you heard that, but I wasn't planning for that. But of course, because there's such a rooted influence, they just like sneak out every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, subconsciously it's in there, and before you know it, it's coming out, like you said. And I think that's just being around and devouring music like we do, because we're such, we just devour it, and a lot of it just goes in there and into the filing cabinet, and suddenly before you know it, you're influenced by something you didn't even know you were influenced by. Is
it hard to sometimes listen to music as just a listener and not to listen to it as a writer or something? Because a lot of times I put my focus so hard on things, that I'm like, am I enjoying it?
I'm pretty good at letting go and just listening to it. I was really concerned that when I started singing with Thin Lizzy, that would ruin it for me as a fan, because I would have to be so close to everything for obvious reasons. And it didn't. I didn't let it, but it didn't change the way I feel about the band, because I was such a Lizzy fanatic. I was really concerned it was going to just take the fan aspect out of it, for like you said.
Yeah.
And it didn't. So I'm quite good at just, not analyzing it. Now my own stuff, that's a different story, but somebody else is like, I can seem to just go, you know what, I'm just going to go and enjoy this. That's it. But I listen to stuff and go, that's amazing. That riff or that melody, that wow, that stuff will resonate with me. Absolutely. But I won't pick it apart.
So when you were putting the songs together for this album, of course, because I'm thinking about like this is like 30 plus years just since you put out your first work with like the Almighty and whatnot, and like you seem to have this bottomless pit of songs because it blows me away how much music you're able to just put out. When you're doing an album, are you going into it with all new material, or do you sometimes kind of go back to that pit a little bit and go, well, let me pull some of this out?
Bit of both. I mean, definitely coming into it with new material, very much. I will go back and revisit, what's on the phone or what's on that hard drive, and sometimes you'll find a gem. Most of the times you'll find nothing because you didn't use it for a reason. And that reason still exists 10 years later. Because it wasn't right, or you couldn't come up with something in the next part of it or something, and that usually still is very sort of there. But sometimes you'll go, oh, hang on a minute, now this makes sense, or that. No, I think I've got something for that riff or whatever, or a lyric. But most of it is just continuously writing and having material on the go all the time, and then just really sitting down and going, okay, what's going to work? How is this going to work? How is this song going to be put together?
I know that sometimes if a songwriter, you write something and it doesn't do something for a particular reason or a very specific reason, that sometimes going back to it, you're also a totally different person than you are when you had written that. But sometimes there might be this one line that you're like, oh, that's a fucking good line. I'm going to take that and reuse that. So it's okay to steal from yourself,
Well, absolutely, 100%, and I have done many times and we'll continue to do so. But no, there was pretty much a blank canvas for this one, apart really from Don't Leave Me in the Dark. The rest of the songs were really put together just prior to going in to record the record.
So the artwork also I wanted to bring up, the heart with the roots, with the tree. I'm thinking to myself, like, that's a very profound statement. And so was that kind of tied into what I was just curious about as far as it being a very retrospectively kind of broad influence of an album for you?
My stepdaughter designed the album cover.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. And she's a great artist, and I wanted her to do something for quite a while, and I just said, Zoe, I've got, the album's called Bloodties. Here's some lyrics. Here's a rough idea, and boom, she sent that back, and I was just like, you've nailed this. With the tree of life, or the family tree coming out of the heart, with the the veins being the branches of the tree, and I just thought, this is magnificent. It's so cool. So I was really proud and happy that worked out the way that it did. It's so great. And obviously I'm super proud that, I can say it's my stepdaughter that's designed the album cover, but she got it, and she got it straight away, and she nailed it. And I didn't have to really give her too much direction at all, because as soon as she started sending the sketches, I was like, this is going to be cool. You've got this, just go for it. And she did. So it's lovely to see that now. We're starting to get the product back now, and seeing it on the album and sending it to her. And I said, this is all going to be on all of our t-shirts next year, and so she's thrilled.
Be sure to give her a discount on the merch,
Hey, you'd be asking me for a buyout, I'm sure, pretty soon, you know what I mean?
Especially with the resurgence of vinyl and people like, we're starting to see this return of artwork on Medium, which I love it, because now, I mean, that's kind of like what we were as kids, right? I mean, I'm 51 now, but I miss buying a Maiden album and sitting on my bed for hours and looking at every aspect of it. And
you would almost sometimes buy a record just on the strength of the artwork alone, if it was cool, I mean, I think that it's excuse the pun, but it's such a lost art for our generation. It was so much a part of the whole experience of that new album. Was the artwork, the inner sleeve, the lyrics, the credit. You're probably like me. You sit and read the credits down to who made the studio. You know what I mean? Where they recorded, and I loved all that and still do. And I'm glad that's kind of making a comeback, because I think it's a thing. It's a piece of work. It's not in the cloud. It's not in the air. It's like, it needs to be physical. You need to be able to. Plus, as there's nothing better sounding than a good piece of vinyl.
You know, and I just love that. Especially you pick up an old record, you put it on, you get that crackle.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the beat up, the better for me. You know, as long as it doesn't skip, I'm good. Well, so what do you have coming up, man? Like, do you have some tour dates coming up? I mean, you know, what's the situation for you as far as getting out for the album?
Yeah, we start in March in the UK. I'm going out with the Fighting Hearts, which is my backing band, and we're on tour with Stiff Little Fingers throughout around the UK, which is great. And then we'll get into we finish that and we're sort of into festival season in Europe. So we've got a few festivals coming up. And then we're back out again in the UK in the fall, headline tour. I'm hoping to try and squeeze some US dates in at some point where possible as well. They might just be solo acoustic, they might be with the band, just depends what the deal is and situation is. But yeah, I'm just want to try and get out and tour this record as much as I can, and you know, the powers that be that look after me are trying to make that happen at the minute. So there's dates coming in all the time, which is great. Very blessed to be having that, and yeah, just get out there and play the hell out of these songs.
At what point would we ever be able to see like a Ricky Warwick anthology live album?
It'll be soon. I mean, maybe getting to that point. You know, I mean, certainly there's enough material there to do, you know, Ricky Warwick, you know, best of. Because I mean, I think this is my 6th solo record now, is it? I think it is. Right?
I think it's your 7th, or maybe it is.
Yeah,
I mean, I lost track. Yeah, I think it's 6 or 7.
I'm losing track as well. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't rule it out. You know, that would be cool.
Well, Ricky, I am so glad I got to talk to you about all this, man. You're such a great guy, and yeah, man, you made my day.
Likewise, I really enjoyed your questions. They were great.
Well, like I said, the album's fantastic. The art's great. I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Thanks, Don.
I've been breaking out of here since that tag came off my wrist. Under flags of inconvenience, clench my teeth and clench my fist. But everyone who dared to care found bitter in the sweet. Pissed all my faith against the wall down on Damascus Street.